Good morning, everybody. Today, we are going to talk about the importance of the stories we tell ourselves, especially as a leader. I'm Jenn Whitmer, and I help teams and leaders solve conflict and personality clashes, and I am thrilled. I'm a little bit giddy about my guest today. I am so excited that she's here to be with us. So if you are here live, like Shelby, who showed up early to the party, let me know that you're here live. If you're catching the replay, put your comments in as well. I'll come back and say hello to you because this is going to be a great day. So joining me today is best-selling author and Chief Storytelling Officer of Success Magazine, Kindra Hall. She teaches leaders and executives and entrepreneurs across just countless industries to harness and leverage the power of their stories. And her book, which is just right over there, called Stories That Stick, debuted #2 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, and is one of my favorite business books on why story matters in our business lives. And her new book, Choose Your Stories, Change Your Life, comes out on January 11th. 38 days, 36. I can't even do math. It's not very far away. And if you've been around a minute, you know that I talk a lot about the stories we tell ourselves. And I use an Enneagram lens, but it's still about the story. So I have loved watching this process, her research, writing, and I just had to ask her for our Thursday chat. So she's based in New York City with her husband, also a Michael, and their 2 kids. So Kindra Hall, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jenn, it is such an honor. I have such a deep respect for you. You have been such a supportive and you probably don't even know this, but like a supportive, calming force in this journey for me. And every time I see a comment or a message from you come through, it always puts a smile on my face. So it's an honor to join you here this morning.
I did not know that, so thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing your face in my feed all the time.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, we have some of our regular friends here today, and Shelby and Susan and Jill and some Allison, some new ones. So glad that you all are here. We always have just such a short time on these Thursday chats. So I want to get to some of my questions because I can't wait to hear your brilliance that you're going to ask. So I want to hear from you and your research and the work that you've done about what is the importance of self-storytelling and choosing a story. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that in the work that I've been doing, which of course is it's so fascinating. There's nothing more amazing than deep storytelling work, right? Whether it's with others or whether it's with yourself. And I think that's actually it right there, is we don't necessarily realize on the everyday front of our mind conscious level how much storytelling we really do, and how many of our experiences and the moments in our lives, whether they were big or more often really small, we carry around with us, and that these stories, they build up and they elevate then what our beliefs that we have in ourselves that sound very much like they are set in stone. And what I suspected, and then what I've learned through research and my work on this, is that actually this is more like sand, and you have a whole collection, a lifetime of stories to choose from. And if you start choosing intentionally the stories that serve you and the way you want to feel in your life and the places you want to go, a lot of powerful things can happen. Just that intentionality can really change everything.
Here's when I have listened to you talk about this a little bit, because as a coach, and especially working with the Enneagram, it's all about your motivation. So it is the stories that we tell ourselves. But I think the difference that when I started hearing you talk about self-storytelling was previously, I kind of thought about it like, I don't know, like a ticker tape. Like, here's the ticker tape that goes across my mind. And I often talk about not everything that you think in your mind is true. Like we just let it pass through our mind and it just drops in the truth bucket unexamined. But
Yeah.
when you started talking about it, I think I felt the power shift between that ticker tape and a library I get to choose from.
Yes, that's
Like all of a
exactly
sudden there
it.
was a book of shelves that I was like, oh, I mean, I talk about choosing my story, but for some reason, as a bibliophile, I wanted to see this book of library
Yes.
shelves of my past that I could pull out.
And I was actually, it's so funny that you say that because yesterday I was just on an interview with a young woman in fashion. And the way she had really, it had started showing up for her was when I said, I had tweeted something like, it's like going through, when you go through your closet and you find an outfit that you had completely forgot, or if you're someone who swap seasons, like I swap seasons, and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this dress or this pair of slacks. And that she was like, oh yes, that is, I've totally forgotten about this amazing thing that happened to me or this small accomplishment. And she gets to choose those story outfits, if you will. So I love, as a book lover, that's what resonated for you. Any fashionistas or fashionistas out there, maybe it's the outfit you forgot in the closet that resonates with you. But it really is, I think, the most important thing, like two important key themes here is awareness, and that deep understanding. And I think that's where we connect, right? The more you understand about yourself, it's not even understanding, if you're a leader, the people around you, you first have to understand yourself. And there's so much to understand. And when you start thinking about it in terms of stories, it gets even more exciting. I think you're like, wait, I remember that happened. And I still remember that. And that is actually still a fiber of the way I see myself. So that's crazy. So the awareness and then the agency aspect, that then you get to take ownership and decide. You're not just a viewer, you get to be an active curator of these stories. So awareness and agency, I think, are the two big things that I hope people walk away with when they read this book.
So I want to just underline and highlight that you get to choose the story. You just, like, the agency of that. We are not passive observers in our lives, and sometimes we act like that. Like, it's just Netflix up there and we're just, just letting it go. But actually we get to choose. We have the power to choose.
And it happens in big ways, it happens in small ways, and you can sometimes and you won't even notice that it's happening. Hopefully now you will. But like, I remember once, way early, when I started dating my Michael, and we had a group of friends that wanted to go on a ski trip, and Michael grew up skiing, and I said, no, I hate skiing. And he was like, really? I said, yeah, I hate skiing. And he said, you've never really talked about skiing. When did you go skiing? And I said, I went skiing one time in 4th grade, and my dad was the chaperone, and we had a miserable day. And afterwards he told me that I hated skiing, and it was true. I had a terrible day and I haven't gone skiing since. And so here it was, like, I hate skiing. And he just kind of looked at me, and it was one of those moments where I thought, wait, do I hate skiing? And what was at stake for me there is, he said, on no uncertain terms, Kindra, my family grew up going on ski trips. It's really important to me that that's an option for our family. And I mean, then he's talking about a long-term relationship. So I was like buying snow pants and putting on, and everything. But it just happened in this like very blanket statement. And I think that's one of the things that's really important, is to start paying attention in your life when you're just like, oh, no, I don't do this, or I don't like that, or I can't do this. And of course it can express itself in much bigger ways when it's oh, I can't manage a team of 20. I've only ever managed a team of 5, or you know what? So, but to be on the lookout for those.
And it's so true. And again, I love the ski pants, and now it's real. But
you know what, Jen? It turns out I don't like skiing. I really, like, I've gone a couple of times. I can ski, and I don't like it. And so now, like, it's not like that story turned out, oh, I hated it in 4th grade, but now I don't like it. And now it's totally okay that I'm the mom that sits in the ski chalet while my kids are out skiing. And I own that story. right? But
right. No shame in the hot chocolate game in the chalet.
yeah,
That's not a
exactly,
problem.
exactly.
Well, but the part that you just said is what's so important, that you owned the story. And I can't remember who said it, but that when you own your story, that's when you start to heal.
Mhm.
And so much of mismanagement in leadership and unnecessary conflict comes from a part of us that we haven't been willing to examine or heal.
Mhm.
And we think about that as our personal lives.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like to say all the time is that we're whole people. And so we show
Mhm.
up wherever you go, there you are.
Yep,
And so if we're
exactly.
not willing to own the stories, like Jeff is saying, that we tell these stories as if they are truth
Yes.
all the time, rather than, oh, what can I choose about this? And Shelby's like realizing that, oh, the stories I tell as a mother, the stories I tell my child, like, how do I challenge these old stories and bring them, again, that agency to which library book am I going to pull off this shelf and use as a powerful tool to move myself forward. One of my friends, I've totally co-opted this phrase. She used to sing a song to her kids, like, you've done it before, you can do it again.
Yes, yes,
And so I've totally
yes.
co-opted that as like a professional thing. I've done it before. I've done a team of 5. I can do a team of 20. Like,
Yes.
that power that's there.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, when we talk about this leadership aspect of the stories that we tell, I'd love to hear you tell me a little bit about what you see the impact on an organization. And when I talk about organizations, sometimes that's a family, sometimes
Mhm.
that is a multi-million-dollar corporation.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
what is the impact on an organization when a leader changes their storytelling, both self-storytelling and then group storytelling?
Yeah, and I think you said that in a really important way because, as we've been talking here, it's so important to start for any leader to start with themselves. Right? Like you have
Absolutely.
and you hear this, you have to do the work. The leader comes from all of the leadership, but of course then my lens is you need to be working on your story. So anytime you feel that flash of emotion or it's something that keeps you up at night or there's whatever where there is conflict, the first place to look is okay, so what stories am I bringing to this that are causing me to feel this way? And a close examination of that is going to set you at a much more even place, like an accurate place to start approaching the true problem, right? So I think more aware leaders of their stories, and this is not to say just having awareness of your story is not an immediate implication that the story will be solved, but it's amazing again how freeing it can be when you're like, oh wow, that's a part of me. But then secondly, you start to be able, and this is what I saw from the participants that I took through this research group, is that they started in their own work as self-storytellers and becoming aware and choosing better stories. They could see the people around them as collections of stories too. And so when there
Mm.
was conflict with, there was a really powerful story that actually in, I'll say, isn't in this book, about two
I
about
like
two
that story.
sisters. Yeah, yeah, isn't in this book, about two sisters, and the one sister was in the group and just had all of these epiphanies about herself, and then it allowed her to see her sister more clearly, and then in a very delicate conversation her sister revealed some of her stories, and I mean, it gives me the chills. And so much of leadership, we hear about vulnerability, and I don't know that this word is being thrown around as much as it should be, but just compassion, because
Mhm.
it sounds too soft. But when you can approach your team when there is conflict with compassion, knowing that there are stories there that you don't know because they don't even know what they are, there's opportunity there to have a whole team of people see each other as like, oh wait, there's a story there, there's a story there. I want to know these stories so we can all be working together in a much clearer place.
Absolutely. What I love about that is that compassion actually means co-laboring. We are
Mm.
working together. When we talk about passion, we think of it as this deep emotional work, which it is, but it's a labor work,
Yes.
and so that I'm going to come alongside and be with you in the work is the root of that word. And so it's one of my favorite, when we really dig into talking about how we work with people, like
Yes.
compassion is so important. And then one of the things that I think is really powerful that you do so well is that sometimes people use the word stories. Like growing up, one of my aunts would be like, "Are you telling me a story?"
Yeah,
Which meant
right.
a lie.
Right,
But
right.
we're not talking about picking a story that isn't true. We're talking about picking a story that is real. So I
Yeah.
love Jill's question here. Like, our deepest beliefs are these stories that we tell. So how do we help ourselves and others choose that type of story?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I felt very strongly about in this core message is, and I mean, there was a time in my life where I had an affirmation that I would read before spin class every time I went. So I would go in. This is pre-New York, so this is back in my where I lived previously. And I would go in, I would get my bike, and then I would go out and sit in my car and read an affirmation. And it was like, "You are going to be by XYZ date, and this is going to happen." And it was all this future, and it was valuable, right? However, we also have very strong internal editors, and we know when we're not telling the truth, and so it just makes it, I think, more challenging. um, but if you are looking at your own and then also your team members actual stories, like things that you have done before. And maybe you have a goal to, sell 5 million books, but you've never sold 5 million books before. But there's another area of your life where you did something you never thought you could do and you accomplished that. You can take that story from that area of your life and bring it over here and tell it to yourself to motivate you to achieve this new thing that you haven't done. And then as a leader, once you see where some of those limiting stories are for your team members, or you catch wind of their limiting beliefs and you can see this happen, and whether you know it or it's explicitly stated, then my encouragement to you is to equip them with real life stories from the career that things that you have actually witnessed, and tell those stories back to them. So remember a very specific, like if they're saying, I don't feel comfortable sharing that part of the presentation. I don't feel comfortable taking on that part of the presentation. I think Robert should do it, or whatever it is, to say, actually, I remember, Olivia, when you took on this meeting and you did this, this, and this, and everyone walked out of the room. Bring Olivia back to that boardroom where she gave that presentation, because she's probably just kind of swept that story to the side as she's thinking about the next thing she's trying to accomplish, or as her negative stories are trying to bring her down. And so as a leader, equipping your team with stories that will fuel them forward.
It's so good. And yeah, and Shelby and Jeff are making these two great points. Sometimes what's affected us happened 5 minutes ago is like, I stood up in seventh grade this one time and said this thing, and now I can't do that presentation. That happens all the time.
Absolutely.
But when we repeat the storytelling is part of culture building. And so when you repeat the stories, they have to be true. Like you said, they have to be rooted in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
And I love that, taking them back to that boardroom when it happened in this positive way. I have a client who had a pretty intense anxiety. I mean, really traumatic experience with an event a couple years ago, and it was anxiety inducing, like client hanging by a thread. Are we going to lose this client? Like multi-million dollar issue. And they've done a ton of repair work in the last couple of years. And because of COVID, that event didn't happen last year. So this year it's happening again for the first time. So all those stories came back.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was talking to them, and it was really successful. Like, it's finished now. It was really successful. And I was like, what feels different now? And he said, I've rewritten the story of that event. And that's what's so powerful. It doesn't have to go back to this, oh my gosh, we're going to lose this client and billions of dollars. But like, we did the work and we can continue with this because I've rewritten the story. And I think that's what's so powerful. I just looked at the time.
I could talk to you forever. I want to do this because this for me, Jenn, is like a cross section of two very important things. Some of my research and the research that I look forward to continuing is about culture building and storytelling among leaders, and this aspect of the outward storytelling that leaders have to do, but the inward storytelling of each individual leader, and then how that translates into helping your team through their inner stories and outwardly. It's just, I could have this conversation all day, but I know you're a busy woman. You're a busy
Me too.
woman.
I could have this conversation all day and love it when I get to. Well, I just think that's what's so powerful. And I mean, I could grab stories that stick over there and talk a little bit about when the self-storytelling is real. One of my favorite stories that you have in Stories That Stick is about the founder's story. And if that's not real, people know. And that begins with the self-storytelling. Who am I and why did I show up here? And then it becomes a real story that then builds culture in a way that you are directing it. One of the things I say about culture building in organizations is that it's not a river. Like rivers just take the path of least resistance. It's a channel that you are digging to tell people where we want to go. Yeah. And that's the power of storytelling in culture building. So like, it's very exciting.
I know.
I'm like, wait, but I have to stop.
More time together. I know.
I love
this is the beginning of a beautiful thing, Jenn.
I love it. So tell us where the people can find you and when the book comes out and what they get if they pre-order, if things like that are still available.
They are. So the book is called Choose Your Story. Here, I have a copy in the mail to you, or will be.
I know.
Choose Your Story, Change Your Life. There it is. Right now, if you're watching this live or before the launch date, which is January 11th, you can go pre-order the book and then go to the website, chooseyourstorychangeyourlife.com. And there you'll see, if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see an announcement of all these additional bonuses. So there is a course that you get there. So the book contains a 4-step method for making this happen. It's not just choose a better story. Like there is a specific approach for doing so. There's a course that dives deep into the second step, which is a really important one. There is a live Facebook group, which I know, Jenn, you're a part of. So I go live every week. Yeah. And we tackle one of those like top limiting beliefs, or those stories that are holding people back, those things that we say to ourselves that actually there are stories under there. And how do we, from a self-storytelling approach, start to take those things, those walls down? So if you go to chooseyourstorychangeyourlife.com, enter your info, you'll get access to all of that. I'll send you an autograph. You're going to get an invite to our virtual book launch party. I'm going to send you a little packet. What do you have there?
Keep going.
Oh,
I was gonna find. I'm like, do I have mine? I thought I had it right next to me. But keep going.
Yeah. Oh, the autograph. So and then so that's all at chooseyourstorychangeyourlife.com. That'll go until the launch date on the 11th. But of course, you can find me on Instagram, is where I do a lot of storytelling. Facebook, of course, here on LinkedIn. I think I'm on Twitter. I am not on TikTok, but someday.
I feel you on the TikTok. I had a friend that's like, you've gotten really good at the reels. You need to do the TikTok. And I'm like, I'll get there. I have one up.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I don't know. Anyway.
But see, even that, like, oh, I'm not on TikTok. I'm like, what are all the stories I'm telling myself? And I know one of them, I'm too old. And that is like, what, go all the way back to when so there you go.
Totally. Yeah. My story around that is I don't have enough time, which is a story I find myself telling a lot. And you know what, when you tell yourself you're behind all the time, it creates a different feeling than I'm managing what I have available.
Jenn, I know. Yep.
Oh, well, everybody, please go follow Kindra. She is such a fun follow on Instagram. She posts fantastic things here on LinkedIn as well. And go pre-order the book. Jeff, my fast master linker, is right there as he normally is. He's so great. Thank you, Shelby and Jill and James, for showing up today, and everybody else who's in the comments. So glad that you were here. Kindra, thank you for being here. I'm so appreciative of your time. And just everybody pre-order this book. It is such great content for making our lives better. And as a leader, as Shelby said, she quoted me earlier, it was like, you lead yourself before anyone else. Absolutely. You can't take your people where you're not willing to go. So grab that book and it will change your life, as the title says.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.